before. Mayor Eric Adams says the migrant crisis could cost the city an estimated $12 billion over the next 2 years.
Yeah, which is why the mayor is calling on city agencies to cut their budgets for the fourth time since he took office. New York City Comptroller Brad Lander says there are ways to keep the cost from ballooning out of control, and he's joining us this morning to explain how. So good morning, Comptroller.
Good morning. Nice to be here with you.
We want to start with the breaking news we just announced moments ago. We had Congressman Dan Goldman telling us about federal help that is finally on the way to help with the migrant crisis here in the city. Your reaction to hearing that?
So I'm glad to hear that federal help is coming. We obviously need more coordination, more funding from Washington and Albany, and this is encouraging. But there's a lot more to do, and I'll give you one simple example. You know, he mentioned those work authorization applications, which the federal government's trying to help people with, and the city has stepped up a big effort to help people with. But it costs $410. You file your asylum application first. That you can do for free, but people don't get that much help with it. Your work authorization application costs $410. The federal government could waive that fee. Why are we charging people $410 when we haven't even let them work yet? So I'm glad for what they're doing, but I want to see more, and I want to see it quickly.
Bring us up to speed on the numbers, if you will. You've had this war of words going with Mayor Adams on what the cost is to this city. What would it take for you guys to, one, bury the hatchet, and two, what is it costing the city?
Look, what's important is trying to get together to address the challenges we face, and and my concerns here. Look, we have long-term budget gaps. This year, through next June 30th, our budget is just about in balance, including what we're spending, the $4 billion we're spending on asylum seekers. Next year, those gaps grow to about $6.5 billion without the asylum seeker expenses, but $9.5 billion with them. So 2/3 of our budget gaps don't have anything to do with asylum seekers. And so what I object to is the scapegoating, is saying these folks are responsible when what's responsible is a broader set of issues. We gave big raises to city workers, and we should. The COVID aid is expiring. So let's roll up our sleeves, let's address our budget gaps, but let's not scapegoat new arrivals who have come here, just like my family did as Jewish immigrants, or from the Philippines, or from India, or wherever people came from. So look, the best thing we could do to get these costs under control is help people get those work authorizations and move out of shelter. That's what's expensive, is shelter, get people work authorizations, and they can move out. The city estimates if we spend another $30 million, we could help every one of the about 30,000 families in shelter right now apply for asylum and work authorization. That would dramatically reduce our costs.
A lot of people are wondering, though, about this no-bid contract from DACO.
Me too.
But you declined it. Can you explain why?
Absolutely. So we do what's called emergency procurement. When we're in an emergency, you've got to move quickly when something like this happens. So we've approved 69 emergency contracts for shelter and services for asylum seekers. But the 70th, this one, to this medical services company called DACO, no-bid contract, $432 million to someone who had never done this kind of work before and just did not answer all the questions that are necessary. How are you approving your subcontractors? The state already found that some of their security subcontractors hired security guards who didn't have the proper licenses. So I returned that contract to the administration. Yeah, we've got to step up together, but let's not skip the steps that are necessary to get good cost containment, to keep the budget under control, and to make sure we're contracting with people who really have the necessary integrity and experience.
Yeah, we need the help, but don't rush it.
Let's get it right, and we can get it right.
Yeah.
Well, we have a minute. I want to ask you about the lawsuit against the Fox Corporation on behalf of, is it 800,000 New Yorkers?
Those are the New York City retirees and future retirees, teachers, cops, firefighters, whose retirement security is invested all across the markets, including in Fox News and MSNBC and all the major studios. But when Fox News repeats lies over and over and over again, exposing themselves to defamation lawsuits, they knew they were lying about Dominion voting systems. They knew they were lying about Seth Rich. And so it's not surprising that Dominion voting systems and Seth Rich sued Fox. That's costing shareholders, including those cops and firefighters and teachers, $1 billion nearly at this point. So we want governance reforms. We want Fox to implement governance and ethics changes to stop lying over and over on the air when they know they're exposing their shareholders to defamation lawsuits. So yes, we brought a lawsuit yesterday to try to win that change, to make shareholders whole.
So would that put almost $1 billion back in the hands of
That's the
firefighters
idea.
and cops?
We've called on the board, including Rupert Murdoch and his son, to make shareholders whole for these lawsuits and defamation lawsuits and lies that happened on their watch.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens next.
Great to be with you.
Thank you
you
so
much.
I appreciate your time as always.